Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. What is going on, guys? It is Daniel, and we are back here again today with Dad. Today we're watching this video. I found this video and it's titled I can't see the title. Oh, Who Compiled and Who Wrote the Quran? History of the Quran Explained. This was prompted by a question that my dad asked me, and I didn't have a great answer. I felt like, you want to ask a question?
Yeah, it's so how, when Muhammad spoke and his words were then written, can you say that the words that the prophet spoke were not just a consensus of the group that recited and later wrote those words?
Right. So you want to make sure there's a complete untouched chain all the way from what he first recited to what was written down.
Yeah, how do we know? How do you know?
How do we know it's the same?
Right.
And I want to say my answer just to embarrass myself if I can. What I told him is, I explained to him the history, like, it was not compiled until Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, died. But there's no way to prove. There's no way to prove this. How? I asked him, what evidence would you accept to prove that what Muhammad, peace be upon him, recited was what was written down?
Be an acceptable answer. So when you have a problem, you have to be able to define what you would accept as a solution, and I don't know that I have one.
Right. Obviously there's no video
like,
evidence.
how do you know there's love?
Yeah, sort of, yeah.
How do you feel it?
How do you know you're experiencing reality, like stuff like this? Because it's so long ago that it's like, how would we possibly prove that? But for me, what I told them is that my heart is completely convinced that the Quran is from God. Because when you look at the mathematical miracles of it, there's no way a man or even a collection of men could have possibly done this. And I reminded him also that in the Quran, Allah challenges us. Allah says, if you don't believe this is from me, then try to make a chapter that's anywhere close to one of the chapters that I've created. And mind you, some of the chapters in the Quran are pretty short. For example, Fatiha is like only 7 lines, 7 ayat, which is a verse. The chapter is only 7 verses, and the verses are quite short. So, and still, no one's been able to create a chapter that's like a chapter in that of the Quran. But I think that there probably is a better answer than what I've given him in terms of like the actual historicity of the whole thing and how it was actually compiled and who compiled it and why and all this stuff. So inshallah, we're going to get our answer here in this video. Maybe
let's watch the screen and see what.
Let's see
if they addressed it.
First, before we get into the video, brothers and sisters, I'd like to take the opportunity to remind you that Allah tells us in the Quran, who is better in speech than one who invites to Allah and does righteousness and says, indeed, I am one of the Muslims. Brothers and sisters, I'm introducing a shirt that I designed to inspire and encourage you to spread the message of Islam to those around you, inshallah. These shirts are 100% cotton, so they're both comfortable to wear, but they also have a simple design that serves as a great conversation starter, an invitation to those around you that are perhaps curious about Islam, providing you an opportunity to share the beauty of Islam and the truth of it with others and receive the blessings and rewards as a result. So I invite you to wear this t-shirt with pride and let it be a reminder to always strive towards giving dawah and sharing the message of Islam with those around you. Inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. Let's get into the video.
The Holy Quran was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad over the course of several years, with the first revelations beginning in the month of Ramadan in 610 AD during what is known as the Night of Destiny. But how did the Quran reach us today in its final form? In what order was the Quran revealed, and who compiled it and why? If you're enjoying this video, be sure to subscribe to the Muslim Vibe on YouTube.
Absolutely.
And turn on that notification bell so you never miss a video. The Prophet Muhammad is described in the Quran as Ummi, which some Muslims interpret as illiterate and others as one who was not formally taught literacy. He received his first
Is it too loud?
No,
It's okay.
revelation whilst isolated in a cave in Mount Hira, nearby Mecca. The verses revealed to him were, "Read, in the name of your Lord who created man from a clinging substance. Read, your Lord is most generous. He who taught by the pen, taught man that which he knew not."
God states in Surah Shura that He communicates to human beings only through three methods. Number one, through direct revelation, meaning there's no intermediary at all. The second method was from behind a veil. So, for example, a voice would be heard from behind an object, like when Prophet Musa heard a voice from behind the burning bush. And the
Moses.
third method is through indirect revelation. So through an intermediary, like an angel. We believe that the majority of the Quranic verses were revealed or brought down to the Prophet by the angel Jibreel. Out of the small pool of people who could read and write at the time of the Prophet, he appointed special scribes known as Kutab al-Wahi. So they were basically scribes of the revelation, and they would note down the verses as they were revealed. So he would dictate it to them essentially, and they would write it down. And he told them exactly where the verse, where the ayah was supposed to be fixed in a chapter, because the understanding was always there that this was going to be a book, and it was being revealed as a book, just like previous scriptures.
Okay, I'm not sure if there's conflicting opinions on that, but I've also heard. I thought it was never scribed until after.
Right,
that
sounds different.
Yeah, and so maybe there's conflicting opinions on this, or maybe I was just wrong. Maybe I misunderstood or heard something wrong. Please write down in the comments if you know anything more about that. But so
At what point was it transcribed? From there, it sounds like
immediately.
Gabriel to boom, was
right.
Instantaneous.
Reciting verses from memory was common practice in the early days of Islam, as they had strong memories and prided themselves on a very strong oral tradition.
The reason why the Quran was a linguistic...
Can you back that up? And I see an Asian influence in these pictures.
Yeah, it does look like what you see here in Thailand.
Yeah, and Cambodia as well.
Yep.
A lot.
Yep. Well, I mean, yeah,
there's statues all over the place that have this same, I don't want to call it, what do you say, an aura behind them?
Yeah. Yeah, no, I see what you mean. Like, you see this kind of stuff that, like, this is the... Right. See this all over Thai temples.
All over.
I think it comes maybe from Buddhism, and Buddhism is older than both Islam and Christianity. So.
Wow, okay.
It comes from that era. I don't know if it comes... I mean, I'm not saying that was a teaching of Buddha, but, you know...
But if you're from the... from where we're from, you wouldn't have been able to make that link unless you and I had traveled around and seen this, I would think.
You see this all the time in Southeast Asia.
Right.
Memories and prided themselves on a very strong oral tradition.
The reason why the Quran was a linguistic miracle in the first place was because it catered to the fascination and almost obsession of the Arabs with the Arabic language. So they had a very rich oral tradition, a poetic tradition, both poetry and prose actually, where they would, memorize and recite very, very long pieces of poetry. So reciting from memory and memorizing was a very common practice in the early days of Islam.
The Prophet was so committed to encouraging writing that the number of literate Muslims gradually increased. He did this through various means. Firstly, he got prisoners of war to teach the Muslims how to read and write in exchange for their freedom. Secondly, he called upon scribes for writing letters, contracts, war records and treaties in addition to revelation. Thirdly, he encouraged reciting from written text in addition to memorization. As a result, there were many scattered extracts and complete copies of the Quran in individuals' possession by the time of the Prophet's death, and there is disagreement amongst Muslims as to who compiled it into one coherent whole text. Regarding the time of his death, Ibn Abbas states, "The Prophet recited the book before Gabriel every year in the month of Ramadan, and in the month in which he died he recited it before him twice." Some believe that reciting the Quran twice refers to the Quranic revelation being compiled into a complete and final version, and the process termed as al-ard al-akhira, the final presentation. According to a hadith in Sahih Bukhari, Abu Bakr ordered the written pieces and parchments of the Quran to be collated into one book after over 400 memorizers of the Quran were killed in 2 battles. According to the hadith, Abu Bakr said to Zayd ibn Thabit, "You should search for the fragmentary scripts of the Quran and collect it." Zayd said, So I started compiling the Quran by collecting it from the leafless stalks of the date palm tree, and from the pieces of leather and hides, and from the stones, and from the chests of men who had memorized the Quran. The manuscripts of the Quran remained with Abu Bakr till Allah took him unto him. Then it remained with Umar till Allah took him unto him, and then with Hafsa bint Umar. Despite the collation, there was no immediate rush by the Muslims to avail themselves of this codex, as it is understood that copies of the Quran were available amongst Muslims. During the Caliphate of Uthman, 20 years after the death of Prophet Muhammad, the Caliphate had grown considerably into Iraq, Syria, Egypt and Iran, with a variety of languages and dialects being spoken across the region, creating a perceived need for the clarification of the recitation of the Holy Quran. According to Sahih al-Bukhari, Hudayfa bin Yaman was concerned about how the people of Iraq and Sham differed in their recitation of the Quran. Uthman therefore requested the manuscript of the Quran from Hafsa so he could order it to be compiled into one unified codex. He appointed a committee of 4 people, Zayd ibn Thabit, Abdullah ibn Zubair, Sa'ad ibn al-As, and Abdul Rahman bin al-Harith, to transcribe a master copy of the Quran. More people were recruited into the committee to make 12 in total, with Ubay in charge. When the book was compiled, Uthman sent copies to Kufa, Basra, Damascus, and kept one in Medina. According to the majority of historians and scholars, this is the Quran that is with us today, with the 114 surahs in the same order, though it is debatable whether the present order was directed by the Prophet before his passing or decided by his companions later. Uthman also sent an expert Qari with every Mus'haf so that he could serve as a teacher. Shia traditions
It is
differ
a little loud.
It's kind of loud, right?
Mm-hmm.
slightly. Ayatollah al-Khoy, for example, believes that the Quran was complete during the time of the Prophet. He first cites the numerous uses of the word
Still
book
loud.
in the Holy Quran, which is not used for something retained in memory or scattered on parchments, as well as the Prophet declaring that he is leaving the book behind after his death, saying, I leave amongst you 2 valuable things, the book of Allah and my progeny. Furthermore, in an incident mentioned in Sahih al-Bukhari, when the Prophet Muhammad was on his deathbed and asked for a pen to write something that would prevent people from going astray, Umar ibn al-Khattab told the Prophet that the book of God was enough for the Muslims. This alludes to the fact that there was already a book present. Secondly, the Quran states that the Prophet recites from a written text when it says, a messenger from God reciting pure pages.
The fact that the Quran challenges the disbelievers to produce something like the Quran, be it 10 surahs, be it 1 surah, alludes to the fact that they had access to the Quran and the Quran was in public hands. Because if it wasn't, then the challenge, wouldn't hold water. And it could only be serious if they had access to the Quran to be able to produce something like it.
Khoy concludes that rather than compiling the Quran, Uthman effected a consensus on one unified recitation.
There are many accounts in both Shi'i and Sunni hadith books that Ali ibn Abi Talib possessed a personal transcript of the Quran in which he collated after the death of the Prophet, and he'd made a commitment not to leave his house until he had completed this task within 6 months of the passing of the Prophet. The surahs were arranged in order of revelation, accompanied by interpretation of the verses in the margins.
In any case, in 25 AH, 5 master copies were prepared under the guidance of Uthman, and all the main existing fragmentary codices were burnt, erased or melted down. Uthman was criticized by some for destroying the fragments, but his actions were after prior consultation with senior companions. Ali ibn Abi Talib said about this, by Allah, Uthman did not do anything in this matter of the Mus'haf except that it was with our unanimous approval. Whilst the discussion on the compilation of the Holy Quran is certainly a fascinating one, it is important to also deepen our own personal relationships with the Holy Book through recitation, study and contemplation. Allah says in Surah Al-Baqarah, this is the book about which there is no doubt, a guidance for those conscious of Allah. For more great content like this, be sure to subscribe to the Muslim.
There you go. Now we gotta watch another one, huh? That wasn't satisfying, was it?
I actually liked it.
Oh, really?
I did.
What did you?
Well, I mean, it established a chain of custody for me.
It said it was these people that did it.
Right, and it
Four
was
people
it
were-
was more instantaneous than over what I thought was a 10 or 12 year period, which really made me think, wow, how accurate can you be over that span of time with so many heads involved?
Yeah, the longer time, the longer you have to like disagree and like make changes and stuff. But if it's
It's kind of like voting day in the U.S. nowadays. It's voting month.
right, yeah,
Right.
oh, we got to hold on. Wait a second.
Oh, wait.
We need some time here to count these votes. Yeah. Okay, so
Our technology doesn't let know.
So the fact that it all happened relatively quickly makes you feel like
That's a lot better. With like I said, it's about chain of custody.
chain of custody.
Right. I mean, from hand to hand, from head to head, from head to tablet.
So if that's all accurately recorded, you feel like
it holds water in a court of law.
There you go. Does it hold water in the court of your brain?
Well, I don't know. I have a full quart or not.
Full quart. Maybe it's a pint.
Yeah, don't give me a full quart press either.
All right. Well, yeah, I think that was a pretty good video. I think so. Who was this? We don't know. I'll link the original video down in the description. But otherwise, I don't have anything to say. You got anything to say?
I do not.
I would like to mention, I thought it was funny. My dad had this question. He was asking me this question, and I said, Dad, can you ask the question at the beginning of the video when we do the video? And he's like, oh no, I don't want to do that. I said, why not, Dad? He's like, I don't want to be controversial. I explained to him. I said, Dad, Muslims love questions, especially from non-Muslims. They're waiting for you to ask. They're anticipating it. They're ready for it. They're prepared. They want it. They're hungry for it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I said, if anyone's going to get flack, it's going to be me, because you as a non-Muslim ask me, the Muslim, and maybe my answer is like not so good. If anyone has responsibility, it's me. Ask anything.
Yeah. So we still have conflicting numbers in the amount of people that died in the.
Yeah. This one said 400. The other guy said like 700. Well, I mean, I don't know what the other guy said. This one said over 400.
Right.
I think the other guy said over 700, or he said around 700.
Around
we don't know.
7. If I remember.
So if anybody has any information on how many memorizers of the Quran died in that battle that it spoke about in this video, please write down in the comments below. You got anything else?
That'd be it.
Okay, cool.
Thanks.
All right, may Allah bless you generously for watching this video with us, and inshallah we will see you in the next one. Assalamu alaikum.